Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Blue Dog Whisperer. I'm Evan Grollman, and this episode of the Blue Dog Whisperer is going to be different for a couple of reasons. Now, the first reason is we're going to be talking about a little bit of history. It's not going to be like a history lecture, but it's going to be talking about one of our previous presidents and how he relates to blue dogs. And the other reason why this podcast is going to be a little different is because I am uploading the video to YouTube and I will be posting it on some social media pages. So you will be able to watch me if you want to replay it and you can't figure out how to get to my Spotify or my Apple or Apple's podcast. You can watch it on YouTube. Just figured I'd give you some visuals as well. And so those are the two differences. Now, we're going to be talking about Bill Clinton because I think Bill Clinton is the best president a blue dog could have had or could have. Bill Clinton was a personal moral catastrophe. There's no denying that. But he also was one of the most conservative Democrats in the last 50, 60 years ever. And a lot of people think that Bill Clinton, the Republicans, some of them really like Bill Clinton. And of course, you have the Tea Party people who think that he's a liberal. But Bill Clinton, in some areas, could have been called a Republican by today's progressives because Bill Clinton did things that today's Democratic Party would scream about. At least a lot of the Democratic Party would scream about. The Democratic Party has gone further to the left to the point where someone like Bill Clinton, obviously he's still a welcome member in the party, but, a lot of his policy positions just wouldn't be accepted. For instance, you had the 1994 crime bill, and I was interviewed on a progressive channel about when I was in New York City to see Joe Biden back in July of 2019. I was interviewed by a progressive channel about my support for Joe Biden and how he was instrumental with the 1994 crime bill. Now, I was born in 1997, so obviously I have no recollection of that crime bill, and I don't remember much of Bill Clinton's presidency. The first president I can really remember was George W. Bush. But Bill Clinton was a master of bipartisanship because he took a lot of those Republican ideas and he mixed it with some Democratic ideas, and it kind of blended and became law, and we saw a lot of results. I think that that's a very, I don't know how if we could expect that in today's political system. I'm hoping that President-elect Biden will be able to do something along those lines. But the 1994 crime bill, I was asked about it, and I said, there were a few problems with that bill, but for the most part, that bill was what was needed at the time. And we talk about as Democrats how much we want to get those assault weapons off the streets, and how much we want to help inner city kids and have after school activities. Bill Clinton did all of that with that crime bill. We had a 10-year assault weapons ban, which the Bush administration let expire because NRA probably. But I think that he was forced to put more sentencing in there because, number one, the Republicans weren't going to pass it without more sentencing. Number two, some of the people, for instance, drug dealers, deserved to have a harsh sentence. Of course, progressives don't think that drug dealing is they think that drug dealing is a victimless crime, essentially, and I don't think so. I think that drug users, I think people who are addicts who have not victimized other people in the sense of dealing drugs should be given a second chance and should have rehabilitation. And I'm sure that there were people who were in prison for far too long because they simply possessed drugs. And Obviously, I don't agree with that. But the dealing, I mean, the person who interviewed me said that they thought that dealing was a victimless crime, and I said no. I mean, I think that dealing drugs is like giving a gun to someone you know is suicidal. I think that you're an accomplice to someone's destruction, and also when you think about it, drug addicts also drug addicts are also in some instances completely powerless because their main focus their brain has been wired to the point where the dealer has control over them, and that's a significant problem. So I have no sympathy for drug dealers, and that was one aspect of the crime bill which I thought was very good. Of course, the assault weapons ban was necessary. The money for after school activities, more police officers on the street, that was a very good thing. So that's one reason why I think Bill Clinton was a great president and one who was consistent with Blue Dog values, because Blue Dogs do want to be tough on crime, but we also want more opportunity for people who really deserve it. And of course, the progressive ideologues in the Democratic Party seem to think that an assault weapons ban and all that funding for those programs was not worth putting some people in prison, and I disagree wholeheartedly. People seem to have, particularly progressives, seem to have this, depending on when they were born, because you know they seem to have this idea that somehow times were better before we got tough on crime, and I've noticed that the pendulum swings. Whereas sometimes people don't want to think about punishing crimes severely, and then sometimes people really want to get hard on crime. Obviously, as a moderate, I think that the truth lies somewhere in the middle, but I don't think that being soft on crime is a good thing, and Bill Clinton was definitely not soft on crime. And Obama, he released some people who I think probably deserve to be released, but I think that that's one reason why Bill Clinton was a good president for the Blue Dogs. The second reason was the balanced budget. Now, granted, that was the Republican Congress. John Kasich helped balance the budget, but Bill Clinton, regardless of what you say, Bill Clinton was able to work with Congress and get that done, and the president gets credit when they sign something, just like how I gave President Trump credit for that criminal justice reform. I thought that obviously it wasn't proposed by Trump, but he deserves some credit. And the balanced budget, it was the first time, it was in 1997, I believe, and it was the first time that we had a balanced budget in nearly 30 years, and we have not had a balanced budget since then. I'd like to see a balanced budget amendment. I don't know how realistic that's going to be at this time. I don't see it passing, but I'd like to see us get government spending under control to some degree. And that goes back to my issue with Republicans. Republicans like to preach fiscal responsibility, and yet they are some of the biggest socialists I've ever seen. The difference is that their socialism is from the bottom up, whereas the democratic socialism is from the top down. And I'm not a democratic socialist, but I think that democratic socialists probably have better intentions than some of these big spending Republicans. But I think that we need to find a happy medium. And that's a role that Blue Dog Democrats play when it comes to that, finding the happy medium. And that's something that Bill Clinton often did. And it's interesting how hated Bill Clinton was by the Republicans to the point where they impeached him for something that was technically impeachable, lying under oath. But it seemed kind of petty in some areas, in some ways. A lot of Republicans did not vote to actually convict or even impeach. I mean, the Senate deals with conviction and termination from office. But a lot of people, a lot of Republicans voted for that impeachment, and some didn't. So, I don't know, but that's another area. Another one that I think Bill Clinton deserves credit for is the Family and Medical Leave Act. 12 weeks of family leave in the event that you have a sick relative or something like that. Now, this is an area that a lot of progressives support. In fact, progressives, and I don't disagree with them when I think they want to have some paid family leave, and I think that's appropriate. But Bill Clinton, Blue Dogs are still Democrats, and I think that having family leave is consistent with family values. And I think that that was another thing that Bill Clinton did that a lot of blue dogs would approve of. And the last thing was the welfare reform. But at that time, and this is another issue where the pendulum swings one way or another. But at one time, I think 80% of people wanted some reform with welfare. Democrats were doing it too. Here in New Jersey, our former governor, Jim Florio, who was governor from, I want to say 90 to 94 is what I think he was governor. I think he was governor then. Jim Florio did some welfare reform, if I'm not mistaken. So it was not uncommon for Democrats to want to control some of that government spending and to have parents provide for their children rather than the taxpayers. And I don't know if that would fly today with the progressives, because a lot of progressives don't think that Bill Clinton's welfare reform was necessary, and they think that he made a big mistake because of the recession that took place under the Bush administration. But it's not really Clinton's fault that Bush screwed up the economy by with the Wall Street deregulations. And I mean, I'm going to be fair here. Bill Clinton deregulating, you got to be careful with that. Bill Clinton deregulated Wall Street to some degree too. I'm not saying I'm against deregulation, but I think that it's got to make sense, and you can't hurt people in the process. But I think that Bill Clinton was a once in a generation talent. I really do. I think that he was so good at taking Republican ideas and putting some liberalism and some moderation into it, and making it something that they really couldn't walk away from. And I wish that we had someone as who could do such a thing in the Oval Office. I really do, because I think that we'd be going places. I think it's a shame that the last president, who in my opinion was able to work really well with the opposite party in some areas, was also impeached. I think that is a significant issue. I mean, they hated him in some ways, but I'm hoping that President-elect Biden is going to be able to get some bipartisanship done. And one of the things that makes me hopeful is the fact that Joe Biden had a very good relationship with John McCain before he died, and still has a good relationship with a lot of Republicans and a lot of and the McCain family, Cindy McCain. I mean, so I'm hoping that happens. Now, I don't know if it's going to happen. I worked on Joe Biden's campaign. I love him to death. I think that he's a terrific person. I think he'll make a good president. But, I'm old enough to remember 2008, and I remember Barack Obama was campaigning on a message of unity. And unfortunately, hope, I should say, hope and change. And we did get some of that. We did get some change. Obama didn't do everything that we wanted him to do. But I think that Obama realized that working with the Republicans was going to be a lot more difficult than he had anticipated. And I don't know how willing the Democrats are willing to work with the Republicans and vice versa. I honestly have no idea. This has been a very divisive time. I don't know if people are so sick of the divisiveness that they're willing to give Joe Biden a chance, or if they're going to do what Mitch McConnell tried to do to Obama and make, I don't know if Biden's going to run for a second term. Probably not, I don't think. But Mitch McConnell said that his goal was to make President Obama a one-term president. And I don't know if the Republicans are going to try and write history by obstructing. It's going to depend on these 2 Senate seats in Georgia. And I'm not sure how hopeful I am. I really don't know. But I think that the Senate's going to determine a lot. But I think at the end of the day, Blue Dogs can agree that Bill Clinton, as terrible of a person as he probably is, and how flawed he is morally, great president. And a very underrated one, in my opinion, too. So, that's it. Thank you. Take care.